Hey everyone, welcome back, and I hope you guys have been having a great 2020 so far. For those of you who are new to the channel, my name is Drew Soman. I'm a freelance concept artist and illustrator here with a concept painting of a swampy forest. This was a super fun piece to do, and I hope you guys enjoyed the time lapse. If you do have any questions or comments, leave them below, and maybe I can cover them in a future video. Now Drew, why are we in a swamp? Well, I'm currently building up a world area for one of my own story purposes. I love world building, I could literally do it all day, so I figured it would be fun to take the journey of building this and make a series out of it. But back to the piece, I don't really have that much right now to go on as I'm still exploring possibilities, so this is going to be a preliminary look into the space to see what can be. It's mostly about atmosphere. We'll get to the cool and weird fauna and flora as we go. I'll also be tackling things like items, weapons, magic, all sorts of stuff. Both here on the tubes and also on my hub, so stay posted. As expected, we are starting off with the main figure. We're going to call her Marcia for now. I already have a thumbnail for the basic composition and the structure I'm looking for, so not too much trouble right here. Just getting through the pose, and once we're done, scaling her to the size that I imagine in my head for how cropped I want the piece to be. I'm going to be using this big old gator crocodile croco bro guy as a framing element for the canoe and for Marcia. No fancy brushes, just the solid and soft ones to put in the needed shapes and then do a quick value pass so I have something to work my lines against, because I'm not really a line guy, but it does help to anchor what I have in my mind onto the canvas, and it takes a lot of the guesswork out of painting later on. If you are having compositional issues while just straight ahead painting, this might be a good technique for you to use. Just put in that's the barest skeleton of lines. It should work to help you structure your painting, to arrange your shapes better, especially when you're dealing with space in the foreground and the background and keeping those things feeling separate, feeling dimensional. Don't make your painting less fun by giving yourself more work in the end. I'm keeping these shapes pretty exaggerated rather than realistic. For one, it's my preference for this project. Two, because we're dealing with a quieter setting, there's not really much action happening here. Just two characters sitting in a boat. It's gonna make things interesting by just having areas of motion and flow and areas of rest and intrigue. So you have like these little fins that are going to break up the space in an odd way you don't normally see in an environment, so it's nice to have those. I don't really need our Croco Bro to be realistic in the anatomy just yet. He can be fine. He's actually pretty large, and I'm not sure how he's sitting in that boat, but I'm going to ignore that for right now. I'll figure out more about how these characters are going to be portrayed when I do the character-centric pieces, or when I'm starting to work on, maybe racial features, that kind of stuff for how this world is being built, what kind of, clothing and materials they would have. But first, I kind of want to establish the swamp. And so, we're back to the mood piece, just getting all of our introductory stuff out of the way. This actually cascades really nicely into a point I wanted to bring up. This is a concept piece, not a production level or even like a personal level piece, which in my opinion, personal level is like max sweaty. So expending too much time nailing in the details for neatness or for character specificity right now is going to be a waste. Because I wanted to spend that time instead on making more options, looking at larger, broader topics rather than burrowing and tunneling down right now. It's another reason for us to be working quicker and looser as opposed to being a little bit more careful with our choices, because our choices are kind of not important right now. It's more important to work quickly. We're not in speed paint territory. This isn't a speed paint. It still took about 5 hours of work to get to this idea. But once I neared completion, I had questions. I had ideas and things that I knew that I liked or I didn't like or want to see in the end. And it came from working on this piece and looking at it once it was done. So it did its job, which is to ask me, is this what you were envisioning for your world? And my answer was, not quite. Not yet, at least. I like the tone I was going for, but I need more to go off of in terms of the story and the magic feels, and I will have time to flesh all that out in the work that's going to be coming up. So coloring here it's quick and slapdash right now. I'm not experimenting too much here, apart from like the weird yellow-green lighting that will pervade the piece. Dark greens with warm orangey reds to offset it. Any sensation of blue we're gonna have is coming from the dull teals and the greens thrown into the tree areas. The nice part about having these large shapes, by the way, is you can use them as masks to color and later break up the space pretty easily. Quick aside, for those of you who do not know, Control Command clicking on the layers will select every pixel inside and create a mask that you can use to paint. And I believe to deselect, the default is Command Control D, but you may want to double check that for yourself before I ruin your painting. If you watched the previous video, you'll notice I'm really not breaking up these steps as much. This approach is way more casual, utilizing just the large shapes to do most of the lifting and not worrying so much about the miniature structures that are going along here. You'll see me put a few extra bits when I introduce more of the foreground foliage to kind of push back against a lot of these elements that are sinking down into the composition. But really, this is kind of a brain vomit piece. Just putting things out there until we get something we're happy with to then springboard off of to ask the bigger questions. Now, because I'm starting loose, I'm gonna have to worry about keeping on track and controlling the chaos. You know, just because we're being loose doesn't mean we have an excuse to be sloppy. And controlling the chaos is perfectly doable at this point. You know, I have my mental anchor points, I have my personal goals that I want for this piece. Again, you know, when you're either doing a study or a full work, you do want to have the goals that the piece should accomplish. And it's a good way to understand when you should be letting go of a piece or when it's done. People ask the question all the time, how do you know when a piece is done? The piece is done when it's done its job. You know, if you can add in as much polish as you want later on. In fact, I could probably go in once this piece is done and, you know, spend a few extra hours on it. It's just right now it doesn't really matter to do so. But having those goals in place, they allow me to know kind of the workflow I'm going to be using to get to that goal. So, you know, use that even when you're doing your studying. If you're studying the light in a reference photo, whether you're studying the brushwork of another artist that you like, you know, having those goals in place and knowing what the role that's going to be for your piece, it's going to save you a lot of time in the end, because you're not going to spend time dawdling around a piece that no longer needs you to work on it, or it's not going to help you learn anything later on. You know, sometimes it's a fun practice to just do this stuff with no plan. Sometimes you're going to have to do your studies ahead of time, which is actually going to happen in this piece. I did a lot of thinking when it came to the color, but you'll notice I didn't really spend that much time on the value, and that's going to come bite me in the butt real soon. Even here, we have, you know, multiple options as to what we want to focus on. If we wanted this to be a purely environmental piece, you know, we may want to have scaled the characters a little bit further back so we could see much more of the setting. Again, this is just a mood piece. This is just to establish for me in my brain, what are my objectives? I find that in painting, I mean, in anything you do, it is way more enjoyable to have a set of little goals that you're going to accomplish, because the entire thing together can feel intimidating. But if you break it down into small little assignments for yourself, you know, I want this piece to be about the trees in the background. I want this piece to be a study where I learn a little bit more about how to layer subsurface scattering and skin. You're going to have a better time during your studying process, but also you're probably going to learn more because you are only focusing on one thing. All right, at this point, I am just putting in, I wouldn't say small shapes, let's say medium to small shapes, enough information to start enhancing the painting. We have enough information to describe what's going on, but I'm going to need a whole lot more before we get anywhere close to a stage where I'd be happy showing it to someone. You know, this is still kind of like private painting, not anything that you'd be able to give to someone and be like, hey, what do you think? So, you know, I am using a combination of the more textural brushes and the regular like hex brushes to fill out the areas as much as I can. I've been saying for a bit that the brushes don't matter for establishing the preliminary painting structures and information, and that's true. If you gave me the default brush, I'd be able to replicate this. You know, I may not do it as efficiently, but I could do it. But here I want to cover the ground pretty quickly. So I'm employing the brushes that are textured are squared, flat brushes that have a little bit of texture on them. I can do a video on how to set up those later. But while texture brushes are good for filling in areas of foliage and trees, putting on texture on skin and that kind of stuff, that shorthand they can perform is something you have to acquire. You know, you need to know what you're painting. The brush won't just fill in random areas for you with the detail you want. You'll see this especially with people who are new to speed painting or are trying to use speed painting to accomplish way too much too early, that they will put down a lot of brush strokes really, really quickly and simultaneously lose control while not understanding what went wrong. So, you know, keep it slow and steady. You can always redo an area, but it's much easier to do it if you've confined your chaos to a small section. You'll see here, I have about 6 levels of light or dark in the characters in foreground, but I only need about 2 or 3 for the leaf bunches. One for the part that's being lit, whether by the direct light or by the bounce lights. One for the occluded areas or anything that's being covered in shadow, and then one that you can kind of see is more of a gradation pass between the two to make things look a little bit more natural or variegated. Now your materials, your local sources may have a little more to do with color than just plain old lighting, but most of your work will come down to, you know, whether or not an object is occluded or whether it's exposed to a light source or two. You know, is the object luminescent? Is it becoming a light source? These are a few of the questions that get asked, and every painting will have a different answer to them. You know, every painting will have a unique answer, but the questions do need to be answered. You know, so while you're working, while you're putting in this information, ask yourself, what would be the reason for this change of value from light to dark or from dark to light? You know, while working on Crocobro's skin, I'm thinking about those like deep recesses in the texture of his skin, and that's what's going to cause the areas of dark to manifest, especially in the little patches by his mouth, on the surface of his back. Other areas will be smoother, and so that transition will either be less drastic or less noticeable, and so I don't have to put that much work into those areas just yet. I'll tend to cover those with a more summary stroke rather than going in like I am right now with all the little individual strokes that I'm doing. You can see on the leg, not that much work being put into it compared to what I did for the face. If this was a production piece or a splash piece, those little bits would have to be way tighter in order for them to read at the level of detail everything else would be at. We're comparing detail levels as we paint, always. So for this piece, I know that right now, my background doesn't really have that many detailed shapes, so there's a level of detail hierarchy I can afford to have within the main characters before they start to either stand out too much or recede too much into the background. Lots of work to be done on the character. We really didn't touch her that much during the process of painting, but that's because I think we knew that she was not essential right now. I do have ideas for characters. I'm actually really excited to get to those when I do. But for now, she's placeholder. So I'm not too precious with the render on her or trying to get her to a particular place. As long as she is in the boat, she's fine. If anything, I lament the lack of time I spent on controlling the smaller, darker values within our Crocobro's face. And the reason why is because we're working within the light scheme where the darks have a higher range of visibility, whereas the extreme light parts just get bloomed out. We really want to sell those dark areas and only, cover in super dark areas that really have no information from the light. Which, when you're working in this level of exposure, won't be many. So perhaps it may have been a better decision to darken everything and only paint in the area that's being covered in light and work that way. But that will have to be for the next painting. I wasn't happy with the size of the canoe, so I did scale it up a little bit. You'll see here, we've come to the part where I was talking about how I did not like the value scheme. I gave myself a good range of colors to work with as I started nailing down the characters and the background, but I skipped out on making very concrete decisions about the light levels, which made the piece feel very exposed to the sun. And in my mind, I had a more somber, murky place in mind, where the tree canopy would block out a significant portion of the light in the sky. Not dismal, but, maybe more mysterious feeling. So not having that means that technically I'm no longer in control of my painting, because I want it to look one way and it's telling me that it's not doing that. So if I keep pushing forward, I'll be pushing forward from a place of less control. At a younger age, this would be the point where I might ignore it and try to finish the painting as is, or if I was feeling discouraged, I would just close the painting down and be like, I'll deal with this later. But I'm a cranky old man now, so I'm not having any of this. So I spent a quick minute testing out the darks that I want and finding a reference for a darker crocodile. And, not in any glamorous way, just brute forced the values back under my control. It takes a little bit more time, but honestly, it's worth it. You can spend hours fighting a painting you've lost control over, or you can spend an hour, half an hour, not necessarily doing the painting, but thinking about how you want the strokes to feel, how you want your color scheme or your value scheme to feel, and work horizontally rather than vertically. Instead of continuing forward, you're working at the same level that you already were. Establish new anchors and new rules, and gain back that feeling of control. It is amazing to feel in control of your painting. Honestly, you should strive to always feel that. Sometimes it gets murky, sometimes it gets nebulous. You're not going to learn anything by staying completely within your comfort zone. But, you should always have an escape route. So if something's fighting you in your painting, this is a time to slow down and think about what your goals were. Are you succeeding in them? If it's a new explored space, maybe you actually stumble upon something you enjoy and you take that instead of what you had in your mind. But in most cases, if you have a particular idea in mind, it is best to try and get to it, even if it's wrong, so you can learn how to be accurate in your painting. And there are methods to preserve the details while editing the values, but I've been away for 2 weeks, and I haven't really worked on any environs in a few weeks more in addition to that. So it's kind of a nice adventure to redo some of that work. Again, this doesn't apply to client work. Do that stuff fast and get it done. Be efficient about it. But I actually enjoyed my second pass through this painting using the context clues I laid down with the first set. So in a way, that can be a bit of a happy accident. At this point, we have the painting back under our control. We have a painting. This is the part where I can zone out and I can paint without fear of damaging all the work and organizing I just did. Once you get to this stage, it should be easy sailing. We've eaten most of the frogs. The rest of the work should just come as is. This is the part where things start to diverge depending on the artist who's painting. If I hadn't restructured the values, might have a different story. I might still be doing that for a bit. But from this point forward, it's kind of just the home stretch. So I'll let the video play out and I'll come back when it's done. And we are done. If you got to the end of this video, I hope you found it useful. If you enjoyed it, hit the like button, and if you want to see future videos, hit the subscribe button and ding the bell. Also, check out my Twitter and Instagram pages for updates, art, and other fun stuff. I've been Drew, thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you again soon.